You're listening to a podcast from thespoilist.com. Cyberspace, the new frontier. These are the voyages of the podcast First Contact. Its mission? To explore every episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. To seek out new viewers and have new conversations. To boldly view what many have viewed before. Welcome to First Contact, the Star Trek The Next Generation introcast, where three people have been tied up in a basement, forced to watch Star Trek The Next Generation, and then pretend to be chirpy while talking about it. I'm Andrew.
I'm James.
And I'm Alex.
This week we are looking at Too Short a Season. It first aired the week of February the 8th, 1988. The teleplay was written by Michael Michaelian and DC Fontana, and it was directed by Rob Bowman. James, tell me about this exciting episode.
An elderly and sick Starfleet admiral is brought on board the Enterprise to return to the planet where he negotiated peace 45 years earlier. As they proceed to the planet, Admiral Jameson appears to be recovering, and he reveals some aliens gave him a magic potion to cure his illness, and instead of taking it over a number of years, he downed the bottle like a student in a drinking contest. Eventually they arrive at the planet with the Admiral now a young man. The governor of the planet wants Jameson in exchange for the hostages, but instead the potion kills him, and everyone acts like the whole thing never happened.
So, it's a story about getting younger, some kind of fountain of youth. What were your first impressions, Alex, having never seen this before?
Well, I think I speak for all of us when I say that this has been anything but too short a season. However, this wasn't that bad. You know, it's basically fine, I think, was my eventual feeling on the episode.
I think that is about right. It doesn't have a lot of the problems that many of the early episodes have. I mean, it is let down by some production design. I mean, the very opening shot where you have the oldest man in the world on the screen, it looks almost like a Jim Henson creation. Not great makeup.
And it certainly doesn't hold up very well on Blu-ray, it has to be said. You can really see around the ears. Not helped, I would say, by the acting.
Do you not think this was great old man acting?
I don't know what it was. I'd say that I've seen less pouting in a Texas brothel than is going on there.
How often have you been there?
Well, I've got a membership card, you see, and there's a special discount on Thursdays, but let's not get into that right now.
That wasn't the only element of the production design that I felt let it down. They have the biggest wheelchair in the world.
And it doesn't even beep.
Oh, I was going to say, was that consciously trying to reference the original series? I have no idea.
I suspect it was. Do you know how much that prop cost?
Go on.
$10,000.
What? Why? Why? What do they do? Hide notes in the lining?
I mean, it does sort of match the leather and velour design of the Enterprise, but it does seem as though it wouldn't fit in a turbo lift even. And the director has filmed it in such a way that it never has to move. It's just there. Oh, we'll cut to a shot. Oh, he's in a different place now. It's not a great piece of design.
Well, that's because it didn't work. They had to film around it because, you know, they spent all this money on a wheelchair that was supposed to move, and it didn't.
They even get him getting out of his seat by the end just to get around that problem.
Yeah, they added the whole storyline of him getting younger just because the wheelchair didn't work.
It is a problem in so much of television in particular, when they do try to make people look older or younger, they very rarely seem to get it right. If you look at a film, say, something like Citizen Kane, which was made in the 40s, and it's brilliant, the way they manage to youth and age these actors is incredibly convincing. Yet by the time we reach the 80s, they've gone on latex overkill. Because people change, that's true, but they don't get extreme sagging faces that just look like melted plastic. If you look in the first episode, you have McCoy, who's 100 and something years old, a very old man. And this guy, they say he's 85, and you think, he's 85? And then you look at his wife. Do you think they might have just overdone the makeup a little bit there?
Horrendously so. And as I say, when you combine that with the acting, which you can see what he's going for, but it's just a bit too... How can I put it? It's sprightly, despite the fact he's playing old. He's doing too much. He's moving about far too much. Like you've put an elderly man in a home on some coke.
I don't know if there might be a case here for actually having started off by casting an actual old man and maybe having different actors. I suppose that does take something away from the performance, but in this case maybe you want to take something away from the performance.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. Would it have been different with someone different doing it? I don't know. I mean, I can't say that it's terrible, because, you know, he's clearly putting in a lot of effort and whatnot, and you can see what he's doing. I just felt that it was perhaps a little exaggerated, especially when the main focus of the episode is around the Admiral rather than around the main cast. You tend to direct a lot more of your focus on it anyway.
Well, and then you've got the main cast, and they don't seem to be that bothered about him getting younger.
That is a fair point. I mean, this is a medical miracle. This should be a huge thing, and probably, maybe they should go find that alien civilization and investigate after. They found a way to cure death, essentially. And I don't know, if you're under the influence of alien technology or an alien drug, is there not a case to have you removed from your position as an admiral and no longer have to take orders from them, because clearly you're out of your mind?
There are a whole variety of points in this episode where he should have been arrested. He's proved to be a drug fiend. He's not arrested. In fact, they leave him in control of the ship. He leads an insane away mission that, if I remember right, someone dies from that, don't they? But that's never... He's proved to be a war criminal.
That is the thing. He confesses to the captain of the ship. Yes, well, I kind of caused this 40 years war between these planets. And he goes, very well, it was your interpretation of the Prime Directive. No!
Oh, so very many died. Take the comm seat. Yeah, bizarre. It's those sort of little things that stick out in your mind, these bizarre, illogical leaps. Which, you know, as we say, for the rest of the episode, it's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. I would say, if anything, the episode sort of treads a fine line between being like the original series and the Next Generation, in that the whole thing with someone becoming younger, yeah, I could see that being a sort of original series thing. But then the whole arms dealer thing seems like the Next Generation, so it seems oddly sat somewhere in between the two. But yeah, those moments really do stick in the mind.
One of the ones that really stood out for me was when he's alone in the dark room on the secure line, and it goes back to performance as well, and he seems to be doing a Muppet voice. It's just this overly exaggerated gruff old man. Is he doing Statler or Waldorf or something?
It's the Swedish Chef.
That would have been amazing.
Why are none of the crew at any point suspicious? I mean, for a start, they should be suspicious of anyone that comes on to the Enterprise in some position of authority, or any alien species, because every week they seem to lead to some kind of mass death. But aside from that fact, does no one get suspicious when he's leading all of these meetings in the dark? I mean, he has a private conference call, and even then, when that's private, he has it in the dark. An entire phone call.
But his wife doesn't even notice him getting younger for the first 10 minutes of the episode.
And why is she not more annoyed with him? He's an utter prick for the entire episode. Well, to everyone, but especially to her. I mean, right down to the thing of, I acquired 2 doses, one for me and one for you. You have to administer the serum over the course of 2 years. I had to make sure it worked first. But when you realized you needed your strength, you took the whole dose at once. I took them both. What a tosspot.
Why did he take them both? I mean, what possible justification does he have for doing that? I mean, he doesn't know what that's going to do. One is clearly designed for one person. Taking it all at once might be quite a bad idea in an overdosey kind of way. Why would he take both of them? Why?
Because he was desperate to get his wife into the bedroom quicker. I mean, before de-aging him to any great degree, I mean, it seems to turn him into a sex pest, first of all. I can only assume that Riker's been on it since the start of the series.
And why does it clear him of the Iverson's disease? It makes him younger, it doesn't heal him, does it?
Well, I mean, here's a point. It's meant to have fixed that disease, so we assume it's reverting him to a prior age where he didn't have that. Okay, so why has he still got the scar at the end of the episode? I don't understand.
No, that doesn't make sense. That they made that such an important plot point at the end, when surely his body has completely regenerated. They didn't need to do that. That was completely unnecessary.
No, I mean, with that entire scene at the end, with the, "You're not Jameson." He is Jameson. He's not. He is. I mean, by the end of that, I was sitting at the screen shouting, "He is! He clearly is! End it!"
But the evidence is not good. 3 pictures of him.
I would say it is not conclusive evidence that these pictures of someone in really bad makeup. You know, here's him as a really old squashed Muppet. Here's him who looks like he's just dipped his face in too much foundation. And here's a young man. But the thing is, surely he would be recognisable to the praetor of this planet. He would be recognisably the man that he dealt with 40 years previously.
Well, yeah, I mean, facially, aside from all the sagging, he looks similar. And the only other thing that's missing is his almost slightly Tom Waitsy voice. To the extent that I expect him to suddenly burst out with, "We're still on there." But it's the same. It clearly is the same man.
Well, I needed picture evidence to be convinced.
That could have been any series of pictures, frankly. The middle picture could have been of an ice skating polar bear, and he'd go, "Fair enough." Obviously.
I want the middle picture to be a picture of Chief Engineer Argyle. That would have been brilliant.
Usually I would have a complaint that a guest cast member comes in and has the story done to them, or if we go to a guest planet and the story's all about them, and it doesn't really involve any of the crew of the Enterprise. And this is the same, but for some reason it works. I wouldn't really have liked to have seen this story with Picard, for example. I don't think it would have worked. I think in this case, having a guest star come in, get young, and then die at the end and everyone moves on as if it's never happened, it kind of works for this one.
I think it might be a combination of a few things. I think it might be that, A, he's a member of Starfleet, it's not an alien race, so somehow it feels a bit more personal. Also, the fact just where it comes in the running order, that after the last several episodes that we've had, having an episode like this where it's mainly based around a guest star, yeah, it doesn't really strike you as annoying. It seems like a bit of a relief. That's not to say that there aren't elements of the story where the focus wasn't in the right place. I mean, for example, it's a story that's heavily based around hostages. We never even see the hostages, which, you know, I sort of thought probably could have done with seeing them to really sort of give a sense of the stakes.
How many hostages were there meant to be?
I don't know if it's made clear. If it is, it's not really important.
Well, I would have thought that, is it just like 3 or 4 people, or is it 100, or is it 1,000?
Yeah, I think you needed to see them suffering to really get a sense of why this was important. And because, I'm a massive torture porn enthusiast.
I, I was about to say you like to see people suffer, but you went there anyway.
Obviously, I mean, I'm on a Star Trek The Next Generation podcast covering the first series. Of course, I obviously like to see people suffer.
I mean, there's an opportunity to see a hostage situation, but instead we went into some random cave corridors for no apparent reason, really, other than for him to get sicker, which we knew was coming anyway.
I mean, don't get me wrong, it was nice to have an action sequence, because we haven't really had anything like that in a while. And also nice to have something that, was a fairly sort of good set that we haven't seen before, or redressed from something else particularly. But yeah, it seemed odd to have that and not have the hostage. Even if you did say something like a fake out that you have in Silence of the Lambs, where the FBI go to one house and Clarice is at another house. Okay, it's an obvious trick, but it does work quite well. I wonder whether part of it is maybe the fact that when it's revealed that the hostages have not been taken by insurgents as you think they have, it makes you start to question the person who has taken them hostage more, because that's really just left hanging at the end of the episode. He's now seen Jameson die, and that's good enough for him. But no one seems particularly concerned about the fact that, as Picard says, he's really responsible for 40 years of war, more than Jameson is. And he's just taken a load of people hostage. No one really seems to care.
Well, it's Picard's interpretation of the Prime Directive.
The Prime Directive is a tricky beast in this first season of Star Trek The Next Generation. It almost feels, well, let's mention it because it's something to do with Star Trek that we all know, and that's a rule. But there's no solid interpretation of it. Even when Jameson says, it was my interpretation of the Prime Directive, give both sides weapons, but surely the Prime Directive itself is non-interference, not keeping some kind of balance. So even talking to a society, it would seem, which they do every week, they talk to people who look like they're humans and they interfere with their planet, and then somebody mentions the Prime Directive and they somehow squirm out of it.
It's all fumbled to quite a large degree, so that there's no through line from week to week, which does mean with episodes like this that you can get to the end of it and go, okay, that's fine, but how about now dealing with the person who's responsible for, all of the death? That's it. You keep murdering away.
Here's a point I was wondering. When they're talking on the screen to Karnas can only see Picard, and then because Karnas says that he can't see Jameson, and then he just starts talking to Jameson anyway, even though he can't see him. I don't understand how the view screen works on the bridge of the Enterprise.
Yeah, I'm not sure. They said make it a secure line, but I'm not really sure what that means. Does it mean it's secure between just the two of them, or does it mean that everyone on the bridge can sit and watch as well and go, oh, that's pretty interesting?
Well, that's what I assumed it was originally, but it must be through to that 1/4, because then they start talking about what you did 40 years ago. Because if it was to the bridge, then they would have all of them going, 40 years ago. What could that... Actually, no, sorry, tell a lie. They get that sort of thing all the time, and it's never raised so much as an eyebrow.
As we said in 11001001, that it didn't try to give all the cast something to do, which has been a problem in other episodes. And in addition, it doesn't have two plots going on that don't really relate to each other, or really try to fill up. The plots are terrorism and an admiral that gets younger, and they tie together quite nicely. Everything does seem motivated, and they don't actually try to give the crew things to do that they shouldn't be doing.
Well, I do think that this episode could have done with a B plot, perhaps with Wesley trying to teach Data how to skateboard. That might have been good.
And then in comes Geordie to laugh at them. Data, a computer trying to ride a skateboard? Oh, what's next?
A blind man trying to ride a skateboard?
Now, don't be ridiculous. Where are they going to find a blind man? They're in space.
I think that wraps it up. An episode we seem to have enjoyed a lot more than I could possibly have imagined at the start. So let's round up all our loose thoughts in our quickfire round.
Quickfire.
Jameson orders them to set phasers to cut through. Is that an actual setting on the phaser? If so, how many settings are there on the phaser? Do they have set phaser to heat up pasta?
Well, there's stun, there's kill, there's cut through, there's boil kettle, there's scratch you on the back, when they got a really annoying itch just down at the base of your spine.
Oh, imagine you knocked it to kill right before you used it on yourself. There's also one which I don't think we've seen yet, but we will see in future episodes, which is fire at a rock to heat it up to use it as a fire.
Yes, of course. And the euphemism of the week this week goes to Captain Picard with, number one, why don't we go and welcome the Admiral aboard? The stage direction also says he's rising.
I think you have a very dirty mind, sir.
That's something that amuses me greatly about welcome the Admiral aboard.
Karnas at one point says, "The story you are telling me is unbelievable." And you sort of think, yeah, I'm with you on that. It's really not that credible a story.
So what happens to Jameson's wife? Because she didn't seem to be on the ship, and they don't seem to drop her off or anything, so presumably she's been left on the war-torn, ravaged planet with the murderer. Nice work.
That's Picard's interpretation of the Prime Directive.
I negotiated with the aliens and they gave me the serum. Right? And that has the ability to cure death, does it? Well, I certainly hope so. I just downed 2 bottles of it.
Well, we've all been there on a Friday night with a bottle of Jameson's.
The original ending of this episode, before it was rewritten by DC Fontana, actually featured the Admiral reaching the age of 14 and Wesley Crusher showing him about the ship, with him having lost his memory of his wife, his brain having reverted as well as his body. Would you have liked to have seen that?
No.
I think that about wraps up that one, but we will be back again very soon when we will be covering When the Bow Breaks. But from me it is goodbye.
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 I don't really understand, because they go down to the planet when they're in the caves, and they get Geordie to say what the walls are made of. Does he have some kind of special tricorder or something?
I think has he got like some sixth sense or something?
He's psychic.
Oh,
yeah, I think they established that in some earlier episodes, didn't they? It's like psychic Geordie.
Mm-hmm. You can get a lot of those down in theatres in Newcastle.
That's a joke that'll work all around the world.